2 weeks before the 2 weeks before the election, the Democratic Party sent out a bunch of mailers, text message, and phone banking, specifically asking people not to vote for the Libertarian. And I had so many people contacting me and showing me the text messages, the phone records, and the mailers that they got. And I went, right, but we don't matter.
Instead of conflict and aggression, here's governance built on grace. Welcome to Gracearchy with Jim Babka. Jim, it's great to be in the studio again with you. I know it's been a little bit. We have an interesting guest today, and rather than waste any time at all with my ramblings, let's bring him on and welcome him aboard.
We have Evan McMahon, chair of the Libertarian National Committee, just recently elected. We did an interview with the outgoing chair and vice chair at the end of May, right before we went into convention. And Evan did very well at convention. He not only got elected, but he brought in a slate of people, and they are at work already. I hold in my hands LP News, which has just recently been reissued after an absence. We'll get into some of that. But let's start with the basics, Evan. First off, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Well, first, thanks, Jim and Bill, for having me on. It's great to be with you guys to talk about this today. So I'm Evan McMahon, currently the national chair for the Libertarian Party. I served actually for another 10 days. I'm also the state chair of the Libertarian Party of Indiana. I've been in that role since 2021. Prior to that, I served on the executive committee of the board in Indiana, worked on county parties, and was executive director of the Libertarian National Campaign Committee for several years, and grew up in politics. It's in my blood. No matter how much I decide I don't want to do it anymore, just keep getting pulled back in. So that's me.
Okay, and the Libertarian Party. Why the Libertarian Party? Why should someone even be looking at the Libertarian Party?
Well, I'm gonna tell you my entry into the Libertarian Party. So I grew up as a Democrat, and my family grew up helping.
Wait! That can't be true. I've heard that the Libertarians are just Republicans.
Well, so it turns out that when I was in high school, I actually switched parties and became a Republican, and I worked for Republicans for many years. And Mark Rutherford, who was here in Indiana, he's Libertarian godfather here, spent a few years kind of poking at me and needling me, trying to get me to realize I wasn't actually a Republican. And then in 2010, he helped me see the light, and I left the party and joined the Libertarian Party, and haven't looked back since. The reason why I was able to make that switch was I had grown up with the idea that people should genuinely be free to live their lives how they want, that the government needed to stay out of our business and mostly just operate to protect our rights. And I thought that was the case with the Democrats when I was really, really young. And then I heard that from Republicans here in Indiana for many, many years. And it wasn't until my mid-20s that I realized they talk a good game, but they then govern just like the Democrats. People use the phrase uniparty because it's so difficult to distinguish the two of them when it actually comes to governing. And so, Libertarians have been talking about the same issues for over 50 years, and they've stayed true to the same principles, which is you have the right as an individual to live your life how you want, as long as you're not hurting somebody else or infringing on somebody else's rights. And that really resonated with me. And I can see it in action with elected and appointed Libertarians across the country, that they actually mean it when they say it.
Yeah, they definitely mean it when they say it. And you just said something kind of important. You said the last 50 years. I'm trying to imagine, help me out here. How many other parties have been able to stay ballot qualified, come in third and fourth place for 50 years? Who else has done that?
I don't think anybody has, actually. I think it's only the Libertarian Party. The Green Party hasn't. The Reform Party failed after about a decade of trying. And I don't think they even actually had ballot access in the majority of the states. The Constitution Party, which is a misnomer in their name, I don't think their ballot qualified in more than a couple of states. And those states are the ones where you basically get it if you just apply and pay a small fee. The Bull Moose Party under Roosevelt had ballot status in many, many states, but they lost it after one election cycle.
I bring this up because we just got through doing an episode about Tucker Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
And in that episode, I made the assertion that getting to ballot status, most people don't understand the impediment that's here.
Yeah.
Getting to ballot status is probably a $20 to $25 million proposition. But that the Libertarian Party has built Redpath and has other people, a whole array of people with a lot of experience dealing with ballot access, and they have institutional strength and ability. I'm unaware. First, the cost would be massively lower for the LP. It's still very, very expensive, and I'll let you address that. Yeah. But the fact that they've been there, I just want to say, Evan, I was having a conversation just yesterday with someone who happens to be a Libertarian Party member, and and the point came up that people, even in the Libertarian Party, are too hard on the party. They kind of take a dump on it, and one thing that they're not appreciating is that nobody else can do what the Libertarian Party already does. Like, there's already a lot happening that no one else is capable of doing, let alone sustaining.
To speak to that, a couple of things. Here in Indiana, we had an independent candidate on the ballot for Secretary of State, and it was just released a couple of days ago that he spent $850,000 to get on the ballot. Just to get on the ballot, just to go out and petition. When Tucker Carlson was talking about forming his own party, I put out a written statement that said, we understand his frustration as many Americans have turned from the Republican and Democratic parties for various reasons. And that, speaking from experience, we can tell you it's an uphill battle filled with debt and heartbreak. But best of luck. There have been lots of people over the years who said, I'm going to start a party. I'm going to have my own. Andrew Yang, Elon Musk at one point was talking about it. A lot of people have put this forward as, it's so easy. I'm going to start a party. If, these crazy libertarians can do it, anybody can. And the reality is you have 51 different ballot access laws, all competing with each other, all with enormous thresholds and requirements, and the rules are made by the people who want to keep you off the ballot. They're made by and enforced by your opponents, and it's just unbelievably difficult. We've had 50 state ballot access, a few election cycles over the last 15 years, but it's been a hard fight. We've had ballot access in Indiana since 1994 for 32 years. And it is an absolute slog to try to keep it. We had to fight like heck to get our first candidate on the ballot in 1994, Steve Dillon. And then also still have enough money in steam left in the engines to get through the finish line of the election to get the 2% in that statewide race. So it's incredibly difficult. And, I look at states like Tennessee. To get on the ballot in a statewide race, specifically presidential race, as an independent requires 200 signatures. But to get on the ballot as a third-party candidate is over 100,000 signatures that you have to gather and get verified. That's an extreme difference that just, who are they protecting? So like we file as an independent in Tennessee because it's just not worth it to put the resources in. But that affects all of our down ticket candidates because they don't have the quote top of the ticket with the party label to be able to help boost them up. So it is hard. It's an incredible climb, an incredible feat. We've only in my 20 years in remembrance, 25 years here in Indiana, I think we've only had a Green Party candidate for a statewide office on the ballot 3 times in 25 years. I think I'm correct on that. Maybe 4, but I know 3.
Okay. So, and we spent time covering that in the, like I said, and we'll put this down in the show notes, the Tucker Carlson episode we just did. It's the, and and even a little bit when we were talking to Stephen Paul. This is an issue that will come up again and again. People need to realize that just to get to the start line, you're hearing the tremendous cost. You're not in the race yet. You haven't spent any money on trying to get your message out. You haven't spent any money trying to do any get out the vote efforts. You don't have any of the other stuff done. It costs that much just to get to the finish line, because apparently the real parties are scared of us. And there was some news that just came down very recently where Robert F. Kennedy Jr. telephoned a friend of mine and a friend of this show and said, hey, drop out of your race. Maybe we can get you a good position in D.C. To me, this sounds like we are over the target, and we must be some kind of threat to them. Tell everybody a little bit about how you see the Libertarian Party right now in relation to these major parties.
Well, I think that they're all terrified. One, we had several of our congressional candidates across the country that have been targeted for either, ballot challenges, removing them. Where you're speaking of was in Iowa. And in that instance, they challenged 3 different candidates to kick them off the ballot, because when the incentives didn't work and the threats and intimidation didn't work, now they've resorted to the courtroom to try to silence libertarians and restrict voter choice. And we're seeing it play out across the country. It's the same thing.
So how could they possibly be terrified of the Libertarian Party? You guys can't win. You're not winning races for Congress and Senate and president. How could they be terrified?
When you have Pepsi and Coke are not afraid of Dr. Thunder. They're not afraid of the other sodas on the shelf. They know that they're going to sell Dr. Pepper, or they're going to sell Pepsi, and they're going to sell Coke. But it's that little bit of market share that they lose when a flavor comes out that people kind of like, and maybe they stop buying Coke and Pepsi for a little while, and they lose a couple of inches on that grocery store shelf. I don't know if this is a good analogy or not, but I'm going to keep running with it. And so that's the fear. We're the alternative brand soda in the stores. We're the Poppy or bubbly, or those new drinks that are out there that you're replacing your soda with. Is it enough to bankrupt Pepsi or Coke? No, but it's enough to make them lose market share, and that's what they're really afraid of.
And in a zero-sum sense, if there's only can be one winner, market share, like small amounts of market share, can matter and tilt an election, right?
Yep. And the thing about libertarians is understanding that position and that role. We win races on the local level. We have, on the township, city, and county level, and we've had state legislators in the past. Having a libertarian in the race changes policy. It also brings people who necessarily wouldn't have to campaign actually have to come out and campaign and say what they actually stand for. But then also, it changes policy. Having us in there being the adult in the room that can stand between the Republican and Democrat who are just, throwing rhetoric at each other, and we can actually answer the questions about the positive change that can happen in people's lives when you get the government yoke off of them.
Okay, wait. I want you to give me an example. I want everybody to think of the best example that you can of that happening, where somebody is that adult standing between them and manages to get the race refocused. Tell us a story about that.
I can give you a solid example from 2012. I was working on Rupert Bonham's campaign for governor, and we were running against Mike Pence. You may know that name.
Mike Pence. Bill, do you know Mike Pence?
He went on to do things. Kid had a great future ahead of him. And in that race, we talked a lot about criminal justice reform, and the Democrat and the Republican, Mike Pence and John Gregg, just kept kind of one-upping each other on rhetoric. And Mike Pence at one point in time said that Indiana should be the worst place to commit a crime. We should throw you in prison and bury the key under the prison or something like that. It was a really weird thing that he said. But Rupert talked about second chances, and he talked about how you have to build a system that allows people to live in society and kind of repair the damage that they did and better themselves. But if you keep them trapped in this system, this revolving door of the criminal justice system, things only get worse. The next generation and their family are stuck in that cycle as well. And he talked a lot about that during the campaign. And in one of the televised debates, a woman asked a question about welfare reform, and she was talking about being a single mom going to school, and the program that she was part of paid her to go to school. But at this point, she was almost done with school, and they had changed it to say she had to go and get a job to continue getting this funding. And she said, I have to either give up on school and go to work or completely resign myself to just stay in the system forever, because that's what the government had created. That was the program they created. And Rupert addressed her and talked to her when John Gregg and Mike Pence just gave their rhetoric. They just, argued with each other and yelled at each other. The end of that campaign, Mike Pence put together a committee to study criminal justice reform. And a year later, created the expungement program so that people who had just one felony record could get that expunged after 10 years. And he said, and he credited the Libertarians for it, he said, Indiana should be the worst place to commit a crime, but the best place for second chances. And it was the Libertarians that helped him see that. That's a real world example.
That's a real world example. And I know you're capable of giving more. And I want people to understand this. So let's start at go backwards a little bit and remind everybody. First, no other party has had the staying power and the presence to consistently get high 40s level of state ballot access. And we've talked a lot about what that expense is. The Libertarian Party's been doing it for 50 years. Then you add on top of that now, sometimes you're the margin of difference in races, and maybe even force the incumbent to have to defend their positions and come out and address issues they wouldn't have had to address otherwise. And on top of that, you can point to examples where the incumbent begins to embrace or adopt the Libertarian candidate's position in that race. And the adult in the room has made a difference. So there is this myth of completely being ineffectual. But I go back to 2016. I'm well aware and keenly aware, and have written and wrote about it shortly after, that Hillary's campaign was concerned that Gary Johnson's campaign was making too many inroads with the Democrats. And there was a massive full court press that included Joss Whedon, the celebrity director. It included somebody named Barack Obama, I believe it was, and his wife, Michelle, right? And they went out and did this. And then, very obviously, the Trump administration the Trump campaign, took a very keen interest in the Libertarian Party. And now we have RFK and others calling. It sounds to me like we're over the target. So the myth that we are ineffectual is just that.
Yeah, campaign here in Indiana, again, the prominent candidate was polling really high with a lot of state employees and retired union workers. And just, common sense stuff about how the state should be managed, and had really alienated the Democrats. And you just spent $150,000 in the last 2 weeks of the election to convince people not to vote for us because we don't matter. There's a columnist in Indiana for the Indianapolis Star, which is the largest statewide newspaper. He hates us. He never has anything nice to say about libertarians. He just absolutely trashes us all the time. One of my, kind of projects and things that I do as the state chair, and what I'm doing as national chair, is I send out an op-ed on a policy issue, and these are typically planned significantly in advance, an op-ed on an issue every month. Then we do press releases and things like that, but we do an op-ed on a policy position, trying to make it a positive spin on something as well, because positivity works better than just yelling people and saying no. And one of the ones that we had done was on civil asset forfeiture, and it was perfectly timed because the Indianapolis Police Department had just seized $30,000 from a couple who was on a flight that landed at the Indianapolis airport. They pulled them off the flight because they had correctly declared how much cash they had on them. So our police department pulled them off the flight and then seized the money because they believed maybe something nefarious had happened. And this had just come out that this had happened. And so we, sent out our op-ed on it. It ended up being the #1 read article for the year for the Indianapolis Star.
Wow.
So it spawned a lot of discussion, went on lots of radio and TV programs for it, had lots of follow-up write-ups about it. And this columnist, I only know that we were the #1 read article because in his yearly wrap-up, he mentioned it, talking about us as the Libertarian Party. And he said, Libertarians are crazy. They shouldn't be on the ballot. They can't win any elections. Nobody agrees with them. And then he said, well, but 3 of the top 5 articles this year were op-eds written by the state chair of the Libertarian Party. And the #1 was the civil asset forfeiture. And apparently it was twice as many readers as the second most read article.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah,
and so
Definitely.
So this means that our ideas work too, and this is a wonderful segue because the people in my audience have heard me talk about this before, and I'm going to be talking about it a lot more in the months to come. That I believe there are at least 30 million libertarians out there. You can define those. I believe it's higher too, but that's my minimum. I think that's the minimum number. And as I told you, Evan, when we were meeting. The Advocates for Self-Government, I'm working with them. They're just now. In fact, I'm having a meeting tomorrow on this subject as we're sitting here talking. We're sitting down to write or to do a poll. It's already paid for. The survey is going to happen to find out, to pick the target, to find the number of libertarians that are out there. We're going to try to set a definite number for it. We're doing a large sample size to determine this because it hasn't, this specific step hasn't been followed before, but the polling data that we've had from the past indicates that it's probably at least that level. And I have hypothesized that these libertarians exist in a diaspora. Some are Republicans, some are Democrats, some are in the don't vote at all. Some are in the Libertarian Party. They're kind of spread out in all these different locations because we have a winner-takes-all political system. Maybe they thought they needed to be in a particular place to at least stop the worst candidate from winning. But they're not enthusiastic necessarily, or maybe they've bent themselves a little bit to be a little more enthusiastic. But if they had a viable libertarian option available to vote for, they would vote for that person. One of the things that's interesting to me, and this just finally got remedied late last year, is that the Libertarian Party has had in just over 30 states, you probably have the exact number, over 700,000 people registered as Libertarian Party voters, despite the fact that there might be a competitive primary in their state. These people registered as Libertarian in the states where they could do it. It's 30-some states.
I think it's 32.
32, I think that's right. And the Libertarian Party didn't have that list before. But I know last year it was acquired, and I know that you have plans for that list.
I do. And more than just the plans for that list, I want to get that list updated every month so that when somebody new registers as a libertarian in their state, we reach out to them, and not to sell them a bumper sticker or ask them to become a member, but to engage and say, hey, thanks for registering as a libertarian in your state. What brings you to liberty? What's your #1 issue? And you start an engagement and a conversation. Too often, the 2 things that we've done poorly over many, many years is we have 2 tracks of recruitment, which is to demand you join and sign our pledge and give us $25, or we make you take a test after reading The Road to Serfdom, and explain and then explaining to you why you're wrong about everything you believe or think.
For those who are listening rather than seeing this, Evan still has a straight face.
Yes, yeah, we're the only ones laughing. But he did mean that solidly tongue in cheek. But there is some kind of litmus test feeling to the whole thing, and what you're talking about is creating more opportunities to be more inviting.
So I mean, I was literally just having this conversation with somebody today. There's a schism in the party that I won't go into. And people ask me, shouldn't we keep these people out? And I say, no, I want to be, as weird as this sounds, a fisher of men. I want to bring people into the party where they feel comfortable with liberty in their life. I want them to have the moment of epiphany where they realize more liberty, where they have a better understanding of how it affects other people in the world. Our decisions and our search for ultimate liberty and freedom on an individual level. I want people to have that opportunity. Doesn't mean you make them a leadership, but you give people the opportunity. But everybody comes into the party at different stages and what I like to say, comfortable liberty for themselves. Dr. Michael Munger at Duke University, economist, talks about destinational versus directional libertarian. Destinational libertarianism is demanding that everybody is teleported from where they are today immediately to Libertopia, and we are 100% in agreement. Directional libertarianism is a train on the track of liberty heading to Liberty Town. And people will get on at different stages and different points along the journey, and some will get off, and maybe they come back on. But everybody gets on at a different spot. As long as we're on the track heading to Liberty Town, we're good and we're solid and we're making progress and we're moving forward. But it's the demand that everybody be here at this point, which is wherever my measurement is ridiculous. And it robs people of the opportunity of having that experience of, seeing that liberty for themselves and having that idea. For me, when I came into the party, the two things that I joke about is, I said some taxes are good, for a safe and civil society. You have to have a little taxation. And now I realize that all taxation is stealing from my labor and from my work, applying it to something that I didn't agree to. I don't want to bomb schools in other countries. I don't want to pay for this bridge to nowhere. I don't want to pay for research into this, program that I don't like. I don't want to pay to have the government used against me. And so, but I had to grow into that. I had to be around other libertarians and I had to have those conversations and I had to hear it. I thought some gun control was good, like maybe people on the terrorist watch list. And then I learned I'm probably on the terrorist watch list. So, having those moments and having those conversations where we can grow into a newer, expanding liberty for ourselves. I think that's an important thing to have. And I think that's the conversations that we need to start having with people at that entry point. When you join the party for the first time, or when you join a campus group about free speech, when you register as a libertarian voter, probably a protest. It's probably because you just couldn't stand, voting for or being associated with one of the two major parties. But we need to have that conversation and spark it and get it going and get to know each other and have that experience. I'm going to learn from you. I'm going to learn from your experiences and your perspective on the world and your life. And you're going to, read Road to Serfdom 5 or 6 times.
So,
Jim, my quick question. Do those conversations, and it's for both of you, because I don't know, inside the parties, we'll say all three of them. How about that? Does that kind of conversation happen, or do you just sign up and you're on the team?
You sign up and they demand absolute allegiance and loyalty to whatever they say, which is kind of ridiculous because it changes so often that you're constantly on the other foot trying to figure out how to do the hopscotch across the room. Because one day we're against war, and then now it's our president. Now it's our guy pushing the button, and those are bad guys. We have to fight that war. I look at a lot of these issues that each party says are the absolute most important thing, and just in the last 20 years, both of them have had absolute control. They had both chambers of Congress, and they had the White House, and they had a pretty stacked judiciary. And none of them tackled the things that they said was most important. Mm-hmm. For Democrats, it was immigration and cannabis reform. They didn't mean any of that because they're too easy to use as fundraisers and boogeymen against the other party. All of these things have been there over and over again, and they just don't do anything about it. Because it's not what they really care about. That's their fundraising mechanism. Mm-hmm. Each of them has at some point been about free speech, about the ultimate free speech. I grew up in an era where it was Democrats, and then it became Republicans, and now we're back to the excuse my language, but the bastardization of what it means to have free speech. Mm-hmm. Free speech doesn't mean speech without consequences. And so it's a world where those conversations don't happen. And when they do happen, it's a purity test to decide whether or not you get to be in the cool kids table or if you have to go sit in the yard.
Right. Okay. So I want to get back to that 30 million libertarians out there, the number of the 700,000 plus that are registered libertarian, and what comes next. Because in 1999, the Libertarian Party reached its apex for membership. And then next year, because membership precedes money, the result that was the highest amount of money ever raised in real dollars, not inflation-adjusted dollars, in real dollars. That's never been matched again.
Yep.
And there has been a project launched called the Parity Project, which is basically a 10-year plan, but you have a term, and it ends in February of 2028, right?
Correct.
This term?
Yep.
And you have an objective. There's somewhere you're looking to go.
Yeah. I want to double our best year ever. So our best year ever was 33,000 dues paid members. I want us to get to 66,000 members by 2028. I want us to have $4 million in recurring annual revenue. And the reason for that is it's not just a metric just to be like, we're going to double all of this stuff, right? It's because that's the real number that we need, boots on the ground minimum, to be able to support our candidates. Membership drives volunteers. Membership drives candidates. Membership drives the success of a county or a state or a national party. If you don't have members, who's going to come to your anti-war rally? I hate to tell you this, but if it's just you standing on the corner with a sign, you're the crazy guy in town everybody talks about. But if you have...
The end is near.
If you have 100 people who gather from your county and maybe the nearby counties, who gather as members, and they're there to stand up and hold signs and be ready to talk to people about the issue, that's impressive. That's the type of thing that gets the notice in the paper, and then that gets people thinking, they're right. Maybe I should listen to this. Maybe I should get to know them a little bit better. So now you have new people coming in that want to get engaged. You've opened the eyes to a couple of new voters. That's what builds success, but you can't do it with just one person. You have to have a team of people, and that starts with membership.
So where does this rank? I read your article in LP News. We'll hit some of this other stuff, I'm sure, but where does this rank in terms of your priorities right now?
Oh, membership growth? Oh, it's my top priority. It's the number one. I mean, there's the fixing the house, which is my daily tasks, but everything is leading towards is part of the process of growing membership.
And where are you at with that plan? What good news do you have to report on what's happening to grow the membership right now?
So the news I'm going to give you to an outsider sounds horrible, which is last month we were at a net zero.
Okay.
And I know that sounds crazy. Evan, why are you smiling and why are you so happy at net zero? Because we had been hemorrhaging about 100 to 200 members a month where people did not rejoin or they did not renew. In August, we stopped that and reversed it a little bit. We had a couple of new members, so we were plus. This is the first time in, I think, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, that we were plus. This past month, we were at zero, and I think the membership report actually got updated to say we were actually +3. But so we've leveled off. We've stopped the bleeding.
Stop the bleeding, right?
Yeah. And now we're growing. I can tell you that I just got a statement from the executive director this morning with some good news. Last month, we received about 32 checks in the mail from people to our mailbox. This month, which it's, I hate to tell you this, it's only the 16th, we've already received 68 checks.
Good.
So, and is that
from small things come great things. I mean, this is how a seed works.
Pepsi level, but Snapple didn't start off moving 1,000 trucks a day.
What's your journey here? Because where are you at now? Where are you expecting to be at some various points along the way till you get to February, which you say February 2028, you're looking to be at 66,000. So what does that arc look like from here to there?
I mean, honestly, like this, and this is, I've been very honest with people, is that it's going to happen very quickly towards the end. And the reason for that is because it's a lot of individualized conversations. It's a lot of hand-holding and welcoming, as opposed to relying on just, oh, we got your name, so now we send you a postcard asking you to join the party. There's more.
But just in fairness, from what I've been able to tell, and I'm really thrilled, I supported Evan's campaign. I was up there on stage endorsing him because of this and because of his commitment to he gets it, right? And it hasn't been gotten for a long time. The contact you're talking about needing to have made hasn't been made. It just simply hasn't. Like, correct. I just told everybody here, until late last year, the National Party didn't have possession of its registered voter list.
Yeah.
And so now, because you have that, once you have that list, you can be like, oh, we could start going and talking to those people. And then, there's people who make an argument within the party that we should be reaching out to local, we should be spreading the money and the effort and the energy out to support the local affiliates and yada, yada. Well, no, the local affiliates, the best thing you could do for them, I know because I was a state chair at one point, is to bring the tide up by bringing in more people. And it's their job at that point to do something even more fundamental and basic, which is to welcome them into the community. Evan McMahon's job is not to welcome them into your community in California or Texas or Wisconsin or Detroit or Michigan. It's not his job. His job is to help you get as many of those people in there, raise the profile of the party, and then other people are like, okay, well, what's going on here locally? They should be hearing from people. And that hearing from people stage hasn't been going national, state, or local. The recruitment hasn't been there, and the contact or follow-up hasn't been there.
So part of that, I've been chair about a month and a half now, right? And I know that trying to think of the exact dates here. It was about June 20th that the first series of letters were sent to the printer to go out, to the mailing house to go out. And there were two sets. And there were a couple other letters in there as well, but the majority of them were contacting previous members from years past, asking them to come back and telling them the immediate changes and positive steps that had already been taken in 20 days. The other one is we're targeting people specifically on, the voter registration and people who have registered as a Libertarian, but we're targeting specific people in specific states where we think we have more positive name ID as a political party and a movement. And so that was one set of letters that already went out. So we're targeting people who we haven't targeted before, who we've never been in contact before as a first step there. And there's going to be a lot of those. And it's not just printed mail, it's also digital. So we've got ad campaigns going on across different social networks, things like that. But print, as weird as it sounds, does actually matter. People act like I can't tell you how many people were criticizing me when I said I'm going to bring back the printed LP news. They're, it's stupid in the day of digital, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, they tried that for 4 years and they lost money. No one read it. No one opened your email. How many emails do you get on a daily basis that you don't open? How many letters in an actual envelope do you get that you don't read?
But it does seem like the membership is hungry, because my understanding, and we just saw each other last week in Vegas, my understanding is your open rates on your emails and the size of your email list have both gone up pretty dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a higher open rate, especially for most nonprofits and definitely for political organizations. And a lot of that has to do with because while we do send out a lot of emails each week, they're not vapid. They're not, the Democrat and Republicans are, they're sending out, did you see what Ron Johnson just did? And that's their whole pitch. And it's give us money because he's such a horrible person. Whereas when we ask for money, it's for a specific project and it's got specific metrics associated with it. And it's something that you're probably interested in. Or it's news about something positive that we've done or some success that we've done or something that's happened for us. And so there tends to be a much higher open rate because of that. Also because we've got a great guy, his name's Perry Willis, who was actually part of the 90s group. He worked with Steve Dosbach in the national office. The two of them brought us to that 33,000 members in 1999. Mm-hmm. And
True
so
story.
Perry is actually helping us craft a lot of the same messaging, but updated for today and today's technology. I got him to stop using fax machines recently.
So you mentioned you started with the expired members, which is the exact
mm-hmm.
right place to start. Yeah. You said you were starting to let them know of the immediate steps and the positive changes that you were making.
Yep.
You've got a lot to tell. What I would like to do is have Bill in just a moment shoot you solo again.
Okay.
And I want you to talk to a very specific group of people. I want you to talk to people who have been sitting on the sidelines for whatever reason. Maybe they were active at one point or they have not yet become active, but they see the environment and they really do wish there was a libertarian alternative. I want you to tell them why now is the time to get back involved. What are you doing and why should they get back involved now?
So to my friends out there that have been with the Libertarian Party in the past and, felt this was your home and felt your home was taken away from you, that it didn't look like the place that you had grown up in and grown to love politically. It's time to come back home. We had a massive change at the convention in Grand Rapids back in May 25th. And the people who are back in charge of the party have been libertarians for years. And we adhere to our platform and our policy without waiver. Even the things that we may not like, even the things that we may personally feel differently about, we see them as opportunities for individual liberty. The messaging at the party has changed. It's gone back to being boldly and unflinchingly libertarian. We're not carrying water for any of the other two parties. We're boldly and distinctly demonstrating what it is to be a libertarian, which is not a diet Republican or a weekend Democrat. We are libertarians. Their best ideas that the Democrats and the Republicans have are watered down versions of our policies. We've been at the forefront of many of the mainstream issues before they were cool. I'm going to be a little hipster there for you. Cannabis decriminalization started with the Libertarians in 1972. It took a while to get there, but we're there. A lot of these issues were us. We're the constant anti-war party. We have always been against wars of aggression. The other parties may go out there and wave a sign every now and then, but it only matters when they're not in power. So this is your party. This is the Libertarian Party. It's not the MAGA party. It's not the Democrat Socialist Party. It's not the left leaning or the right leaning. This is the Libertarian Party. And if you believe in individual freedom, if you want to see a world set free in your life, if you believe that you have the right to make your own choices and decisions and accept those consequences for those choices, then the Libertarian Party is the party for you, especially if you believe that your neighbor should have that same right to liberty as you. So
okay.
Come back home.
Come back home. I did. I just rejoined the party at the beginning of the year after having been out for more than 2 decades as a member. I was still a voter, I was still interested. I was still being called by the presidential campaigns and others that were in the party for advice, counsel, assistance, support, and whatnot. So, but I am excited about what's happening now because of this commitment that Evan has made to get to 66,000 members. This needs to be the primary focus.
This show is brought to you by the Zero Aggression Project. Zap newsletter subscribers get alerts when each episode is released. The Zap website is also the pathway by which you can contact us by email and support the show. This program operates thanks to tax-deductible Zap contributions, and we appreciate your support. So, zap the state, and have a nice day.
I want to shift gears just a tiny bit here, and I want to approach a little piece of inside baseball in a different way. I had a conversation with you that I was actually very pleased with, and it's not the first time I've heard you say something like this. So Tom Massey is running for Congress, and he gets, everybody knows, we've talked about it quite a bit on the show, he gets targeted and taken out by Trump and his political allies. They couldn't brook even the slightest degree of dissent from 101% of the agenda. And so they said, hey, we gotta take him out. But now the Libertarians have a candidate running. And I'm bringing this up because there are people who are aware that there has been the advent of caucuses within this party. It's a rather still novel phenomenon to this party, but it really bruised a lot of feelings, and it caused a lot of division and departures and decline in funding and decline in vote progress. I mean, everything seems to have gone down during this conflict. But the Libertarian Party rallied in Kentucky's 4th and said, oh, okay, if Massey's not on the ballot, we got to get somebody there. And that person is not in the same wing of the party as you are, Evan. I would like you to talk about what is the future here. What do you see the future being for the party in terms of its ability to move forward with some degree of harmony and effectiveness?
Well, so, this particular candidate and his state party, I was not their choice for chair. And
his name is, by the way?
Jeremy Todd.
Jeremy Todd.
And you can find him at jeremy-todd.com. I was not their candidate for chair, and they were not exactly enthused that I had won, and made that known online post-convention. But it's an important seat. It's highly visible. It has the potential for a huge impact for the party in Kentucky, for the local party, for other affiliates nearby. There's serious opportunity in that campaign and in that election. So just a couple of days after the election, or after the convention, it was, it ended on Monday, and on Saturday or Sunday, I drove down with a couple of people from Indiana to Kentucky to go petition for him. And I told people, I said to them on Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll come down and petition. And I did that online. And then I was down there that weekend petitioning. And I told people, and I said, hey, get out and help our candidates. Don't just complain. Get out and do something. And he did. He got on the ballot, and they were super, super happy and honored that they also knew that I knew I was not their chair candidate, and but they saw the willingness of me to put anything like that aside and come down and help one of our candidates. Meant how responsible I think I am within my role. The trust that has been placed in me by our delegates, by our members, that I have to take that very seriously, and I have to go and help our candidates. The other thing that happened, and I don't know if you're wanting me to mention this, was after that happened, there were a couple of people online who were engaging with Mr. Todd online, and they had mentioned, what a great chair I am, because even though I'm gay and they think he's anti-gay, that, I was still willing to go and support him and help his campaign. And how horrible that is for me that to be able to do a good job, I have to go help somebody who doesn't think I should exist. And I normally don't chime in. One, I hate Twitter. They've made me get on Twitter X as chair, and I don't like it. But I did, and I saw this, and I decided I normally don't wade into those comments sections of posts, but I weighed in, and I said, I don't need Jeremy Todd, to march in a parade for me or carry a banner for me. What I need is for him to advocate for me to be treated equally under the law. And I'm pretty sure he feels the same way. And that changed the dynamic on both sides. And people saw differently. And that's what libertarianism actually is. I don't need you to like me. I don't need you to agree with how I live my life. I don't agree with you. I don't like the way you live your life. I don't like that blue shirt. But it's not about, agreeing with people. There's a difference between acceptance and tolerance. Mm-hmm. And people have the right to live their life how they want to, as long as they're not hurting other people and that they're not infringing on your right. And just existing in the world and in public doesn't infringe on your rights.
Right.
That's what libertarianism is to me. And I think that was a great opportunity for both sides to see this very divisive issue and how a national figure and a national chair can handle it with grace.
Yes.
And acknowledge that we don't agree, but that's okay. We don't have to.
So, the show's called Gracearchy with Jim Babka, and the grace part, we have had a theme, Bill and I, since the beginning of sitting on the porch having lemonade with the people who are walking by that are marching in the parade that you really don't like. Yeah. And saying, hey, what's your deal? Because that's like the first step towards healing, or at least to avoiding violence. And that grace has, to me, frequently been absent within libertarian circles in recent years. So I want to applaud the fact that you're doing that and that you're reaching out that way. And I saw you and Jeremy talking while we were in Vegas, right? You guys are getting along, and this is why. This is the way to the future, folks, is if we're able to do that. I want to hit a lightning round. I want to hit you with a couple of things real quick and get your takes on them.
I want to say just one last thing about.
Yep.
We hung out. We had drinks together. I had water. And I'm going down there to Louisville late September, early October to do a last round of fundraising for his campaign.
That's fantastic.
And, and he's happy about it. He's excited about it. It's not just like, oh, the chair is going to come. That guy, it's like, yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be fun. And we keep in contact, and I keep promoting his campaign and lots of other candidates. But yeah, hit me with that lightning round.
Okay. The convention, this is a little bit of inside baseball, got moved up on presidential election years. You were doing it in May previously. Now it's going to be done President's Day weekend 2028, if I'm understanding correctly. Where is it going to be, and what special is happening there? I'm hinting at certain people a certain type of person showing up. Tell me about the horse race.
So the 2028 convention was moved up to February instead of President's Day weekend, instead of Memorial Day weekend, to give some of our states an easier time of being able to petition with the actual nominee, which will make it easier for us to secure ballot access in those states, and maybe a little cheaper by doing that. Otherwise, they're up against like a 4 to 5 week deadline. Mm-hmm. It's going to be in El Paso, Texas, and this will be a presidential nominating convention.
And you've got candidates, right?
We have one declared candidate. Well, kind of. We have one candidate who declared that they are thinking about it. They opened an exploratory committee, and that's Dr. Jo Jorgensen, Mama Jo.
Yeah,
she was
on the show.
Candidate with Harry Brown, and then she ran for president in 2020. And just amazing person. So I'm looking forward to her campaign. That'd be great.
She's been on the show before, and she's a friend, and there's going to be others, I'm certain. And the presidential campaign's about to start in earnest here as soon as the November elections are over. I would like to know, this is more of a personal question.
Sure.
What has been the most pleasant or stunning surprise since you've been elected chair? You're like, wow, I didn't see that coming, or this is really a wonderful piece of serendipity.
I was very surprised with how our staff adapted and how we've been able to fall into a good rhythm. Right after the convention, I stayed in Grand Rapids and we had a staff meeting, in-person staff meeting, and the room was very tense because everybody thought they were getting fired. And that did not happen. We got to know each other and set some expectations on both sides. I asked them what they needed, what their bottlenecks were. And so just having the turnaround from staff and seeing how they're adapting and working, I was very, I don't want to say surprised because they're all good people and good workers, but it was just how quickly it's been able to happen was great. I think some of the other things that have surprised me is how people that I hadn't heard from in years started contacting me and want to get back involved in the party because they see the shift in the party. I probably received over 200 text messages and phone calls from people who haven't been involved in the last 5 or 6 years that are ready to get back involved. I think, the having the divisions that we've had in our party, there are the people who are going to be on the outside throwing grenades because that's what they live for. It wouldn't have mattered who had won. They were going to throw grenades. That happens. There are the people who are rooting for you to fail while also pretending to be on your team. That's there. By and large, I see a lot of people excited about where the party is going. And it doesn't mean they agree with me or that they agree with the LNC on everything, but by and large, they see a positive swing in the party and they want to be part of it. I honestly didn't think at that level that it would happen this quickly. I thought it would take 6 months to get there for people to trust that there is a change afoot.
What question are you surprised I haven't asked, or you wish I would have asked, or some specific point you were hoping you were going to be able to make today? What would that be?
I honestly, I don't know that there's anything that I expected or hoped you were going to ask. I tend to come into interviews pretty blind. I want to be authentic when I'm responding or answering things. So I kind of don't think about it all that much. I know that may sound weird, but
nope.
It really is. I prefer to not know. That way I don't have a practiced or prepared answer for something. And honestly, I don't write speeches, which irritates a lot of people. It hurts me too, because I can almost never give the same amazing line again when I do it. But I just feel like it's better for me to go up and speak from the heart and speak from what I know and react to the room than it is to have something prepared or practiced. So,
all right. So I want you to, in closing, speak from the heart. It's time to ask people to get involved and to tell them precisely what the methods or ways to do that are. So how do people get involved in the Libertarian Party? Obviously, you're going to ask them to become members too, but what do you want? What is the steps? What do they do?
On the local level, first thing you could do is, if you're in a state that has party registration, switch your party registration to Libertarian. If you're not currently registered, go get registered. That in almost every state helps us with ballot access. It just gives us that little bump up. The next thing is, come join the national party, lp.org. Get in contact with us, find out more about the party at lp.org, hit that join button, become a pledge signed dues paying member, get involved with your county party and your state party, find a candidate that you like and go out and just, spend one afternoon this election cycle passing out flyers, putting out yard signs, or working an outreach booth at a county fair for them. Just that one act of volunteerism for that candidate can mean the world of difference, because you may be the person who hands a flyer to a voter who can spread it to 100 other people. So that's how you get involved. And just being active. It's not just about being a card carrying member, which is great. We'll take your money, but I want you to dedicate not a tithe, but time. Go out and support our members. Go out and support our candidates. Work with your local county party. Listen, if you're the type of person who likes to sit in on zoning board meetings, we've got a role for you. Go sit at a zoning board meeting and report back what's happening and be the representative of the county party there. If that's not your thing, I get it. I would never want to do that. We have lots of opportunities for volunteers, and you can make the difference in your community, which is where all the change happens, is on the local level. So yeah, come back home or find your new home, and let's get active and let's make a real impact on our lives and the positive lives of the people around us by making this world just a little bit freer every day.
I've noticed, Evan, that you are doing more political commentary than was happening previously. You guys have been issuing statements on top of that. There's content's available on social media. I imagined ways to get involved, ways to discover all the social media is available at your website, which is?
LP.org.
LP.org. That's LP.org. Thank you very much. That's Evan McMahon, chair of the Libertarian National Committee. And as I said, I'm very enthusiastic about the direction that things are going now. I want to make my own appeal saying I think this is different because they are focused on trying to grow the party, which has not been present. That has been something that's been overlooked for 2.5 decades. And now they're going to go do the right thing. You know, after doing a whole bunch of the wrong things or other things, they're going to do the right thing. And so I am encouraged by the fact that Evan has this goal of 66,000 members, which in my copy of LP News, first time this has been out for over 4 years, it's another step they've made. 3 times I counted that goal was stated in this newsletter. So it is a priority, and I want to see that growth happen because with the growth comes all the other things that we are seeking after. One last point. Gracearchy is not necessarily a political show. We've done a little more political content in the last 6 to 9 months because of some circumstances that have occurred and because of where I'm spending my time. But we have tried to give a consistent voluntarist ethic here. There's some dispute as to whether you should be involved in a political party if you're a voluntarist. There's none for me. I believe that we have to have some way to shut the lights off. I believe we've got to work towards that. I don't believe it's going to happen overnight. And there's a lot of good things that have to happen. And that the political outcome that we seek will probably be the last thing that happens. But it's important that we're engaged and involved. And I'm confident that this leadership and the ways that they are proceeding are going to do the right thing. They're going to ensure that that's happening. Please get involved. Go to lp.org. That's my personal appeal to you. I'm Jim Babka. For Bill Protzman, this has been Gracearchy.